Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today we'll talk about returning to office plans, hybrid work, flexible work, and customer needs. There are too many companies that don't prioritize customer needs in thinking about the return to office plans. And this is a serious problem. So there's a Columbia Business School study that shows that executives value customers 10 times more than they value staff. And they link staff to risk and they associate customers with growth. But when they think about return to office plans, their hybrid work plans, they really think about their staff and not their customers. They think about their staff situation, internal culture, and don't really think about what customer needs actually are. So, what does it mean to prioritize customer-centric hybrid work plans? That means that you want to have the number of in-office days based on customer needs, outcomes for customers. It might be anywhere. It might be 5 days a week in the office, it might be no days a week in the office, or anything in the middle, but the key is that it's going to be prioritizing customer needs. So you want to craft your strategies around the needs of your clients. The biggest mistake that companies make is failing to start with why, as Simon Sinek says. So what is your why from a customer perspective? Focus on the end goal of satisfying client needs. So let's talk about that 3-day office attendance policy this has become the standard for a number of large companies. It's a really misguided solution. It's a one-size-fits-all model, which means, of course, it's not customized to customer needs. For example, there was a survey of 3,000 staff employees that shows that only 28 find their commute to the office worthwhile. That's really problematic if you want to satisfy customers, because if your staff are not satisfied and if they don't find the commute to the office worthwhile, then they will not satisfy customers. So that's something to really think about. The 3-day in-office schedule emerged after the pandemic that balanced remote work and in-person collaboration, but it's not universally applicable. You really want to customize it and focus on what your client needs are. So let's talk about various industries and roles. As an example, we know that remote work is more feasible for software roles, for creative roles, but sectors like sales, so roles in sales, companies that are more sales-centered, often benefit from greater on-site presence. So you really want to focus on tailoring your hybrid work strategy with your industry and role. So adopt an agile approach that focuses on what the client needs are and evaluates the outcomes of your hybrid work model based on client needs. How do you do so? Start by understanding what your clients expect. Do market research, do dialogue with clients, interview them, see what their needs are, and tailor your plan to their needs. I'll give you a couple of case studies as an example. So one was about a company that I consulted for that's a tech support services firm. It realized after these conversations, we did a number of dialogues with customers, we did interviews, and we saw that they really prioritized fast response times. And so, how do you do so? So eventually figured out a hybrid work model that focused on quick response times, especially during peak hours, but also non-peak hours, regardless of staff location. And what we found is that remote work allows for support during non-standard hours that might be peak hours elsewhere. So this company, it wasn't only located in North America, it had customers across various time zones. So peak hours for customers were spread out across a variety of time zones. And so in order to provide support for them, the support for customers that were located in time zones different from where customers are located. So you had some staff that are not in the same time zones as customers. And that ended up being non-standard hours for staff to support those customers. Now, how do you do that? Well, remote work is very helpful for doing so because staff are more willing to work non-standard hours if they have flexibility, leading to faster responses for customers located around the world, even if your staff are located, let's say, in North America and you have clients located in Australia, right? That's or China or India. Then you need to support them in different time zones. And if your people are working remotely, they're quite a bit more willing and able to support them effectively across time zones. So staff end up coming to the office 1 day a week for in-person assistance for staff, for people who needed to be in the office and collaborate with each other and provide some customer assistance in office for those customers who are located close by and benefited from that, and just collaborating with each other. And so that was a really good dynamic. And this is backed up by a LinkedIn survey I ran with over 300 responses that found that 80% of respondents worked more non-standard hours remotely because they were able to reduce their commute time. So that was very helpful. So let's talk about a law firm that I worked with. It assumed that clients would want to return to in-person meetings after it was safe after the pandemic. But we carried out a client survey that showed that many clients actually favored video conferencing for most interactions. It was quicker, more convenient, and they didn't have to fly the lawyers in, which was more cost effective. So in-person meetings ended up being reserved for more sensitive or high-stake discussions, and it allowed the law firm's partners, lawyers, and so on to work more effectively, spend more time working from home, not try to go out to meetings, and they were more satisfied. Another one. I'll talk about a company that allowed me to share about what they did. Idina Health Systems, which has a number of hospitals in the Southeast Ohio area. So it faced some hybrid work challenges. It had a number of people working in a hybrid setting, but it specifically found that case management and utilization review teams that worked remotely had some problems in their handoffs and collaboration and patient care. And so hybrid work in this case ended up not being satisfactory for patient needs. So we ended up changing the approach to prioritize patient needs, and we had those specific teams come to the office. So that's another example. The first two examples allowed more flexibility. This example decreased flexibility. And that's all dependent on client needs and priorities. There are a couple of problems that I see come up that block being customer-centric for leaders in approaching return to office and hybrid work plans. One is the status quo bias. It's one of many cognitive biases, which are mental blocks, blind spots that cause us to make bad decisions. They undermine our decision-making in all sorts of areas in work and life, including in hybrid work. So the status quo bias leads to a preference for the current state, whatever it might happen to be. And that is obviously bad if you want to optimize for what client needs are. It hinders change even when benefits for client service outweigh the risks, greatly outweighed. So it causes leaders to stick with traditional in-office models and adopt a 3-day work week without really considering client needs. That's what I typically tend to see being a problem for the status quo bias. Now, to overcome the bias, what you need to do is really evaluate your existing work arrangements critically, seek objective data and feedback to see if the model really meets client needs or if it's just comfortable for you and what you're used to. And that will help you make more informed decisions about the optimal hybrid work model. Another problem is the confirmation bias. So confirmation bias refers to our tendency to look for information that confirms our pre-existing beliefs and ignore information that doesn't. So that leads leaders to focus on evidence backing their ideal vision of the work setup rather than looking for data challenging their beliefs. And so they dismiss contrasting data about what customer needs actually are. To counteract this bias, leaders really need to seek diverse perspectives inside their organizations from those working more directly with clients, and of course outside their organizations from the clients themselves. So have that open dialogue and gain an understanding of what are the factors impacting hybrid work success related to what your clients actually need. So that's what will help you design a client-centric hybrid model rather than conforming to pre-existing beliefs. So let's review the keys to a successful hybrid work plan. To design that customer-centric approach, you want to really do away with the 3-day work myth and adopt a really agile approach that's data-centric. Focus on what your customer needs are. Align them with what your plans are and priorities are. Empower your teams to deliver really great customer service and communicate transparently on your hybrid work strategy to your teams and, of course, your clients to make sure that it aligns with their needs. So, in other words, to sum up, you need to prioritize customer needs to have an agile, adaptive, and prosperous workplace in terms of flexible work plans. All right, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed and benefited from this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to review the show. It really helps us improve the show and it helps others discover the show. And make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show. All right, everyone. I hope you've had a good experience and I look forward to seeing you next time.